Good morning, this is Mr. Fiel. This should be February 23rd, Thursday, the operant conditioning large group. Today we're going to talk about a different form of learning besides classical conditioning that, again, can explain why people do the things they do. Always think about this topic in explaining why people are the way they are or why they do the things they do, including you. The first concept I want you to write down in your notes is something called the law of effect. And this is the foundation of operant conditioning. I want to spend a little bit of time talking about the word law is very, very important and powerful. Very few things, in psychology especially, and science more generally, are called laws. That means that there's so much evidence, so much research to support the existence of this effect that it's called a law. Think of other laws in science. They're usually very, very powerful things. Let me give you an example of the law of effect. Let's take a behavior such as popping one's collar, like you see this gentleman doing in the picture. The law of effect states that if a behavior occurs and then afterwards there's a positive consequence or a happy consequence. For example, when this young man pops his collars, in this case, if he gets attention from somebody he likes, the result is going to be an increase in that behavior. For instance, popping his collar more. That's the law of effect. Any behavior that is followed by a positive consequence or a good consequence, that behavior is going to increase in the future. The opposite of this, if a behavior, same behavior in this case, is followed by an unpleasant consequence, for example, somebody laughing at him and ridiculing him, the exact opposite is going to happen. That behavior is going to decrease in the future. And that's what this picture is supposed to represent. The opposite of him popping his collar is maybe wearing no collar at all. But what's most important is that you understand that it decreases the likelihood of that behavior happening again. This is a very powerful effect. Behavior is defined by its consequences. You've maybe heard things like no behavior is learned or nothing's learned without consequences, or the importance of consequences. Here's a couple of quotes. Do not write these down in your notes, just read them, that show you the power of this effect. The law of effect is the foundation for operant conditioning, like I said earlier. We're going to take that concept of the law of effect and kind of delve into it a little bit more. Reinforcement, you've probably heard before, is defined by its consequences. What that means is if a behavior occurs and then something afterwards makes that behavior increase in the future, by definition, it's reinforcement. Anything that makes a behavior more likely to occur in the future. That does not mean the person maybe intends for that consequence to be reinforcing. If it makes the behavior increase in the future, it's reinforcement. Behavior increases in the future. There's two subtypes of reinforcement. The first one you've probably heard of before. It's called positive reinforcement. That's where after a behavior occurs, something is introduced that makes that behavior increase in the future. The classic powerful example is money. If you did something in class, and then every single time I saw you do that something, I gave you $1 on your desk, that's probably going to make you do that behavior even more in the future. Grades might be another example of positive reinforcement. A reward for completing an assignment might be an A+. Negative reinforcement. The biggest thing in your notes, write, negative reinforcement is not punishment. Negative reinforcement is not punishments. It's still a reward. Reinforcement means the behavior is increasing, but This behavior is increasing because when that behavior occurs, a bad thing is taken away. For example, at the bottom of the screen, if you have a car that when you put the key in, a light flashes on your dashboard and a sound beeps over and over and over until you buckle your safety belt or seat belt, that's negative reinforcement. As soon as that behavior of buckling your seat belt occurs, the bad thing goes away. Another example is if you take aspirin when you have a headache, that behavior of taking aspirin is reinforced. It's going to increase in the future because when you take that aspirin, the bad thing, which is the headache, goes away. Negative reinforcement is not punishment. It's still a reward. Here's the example from this class. If you have an A plus or A for your semester grade going into the final, you do not have to take the final. You're being rewarded by having an A or A plus, and your reward is the removal of the final exam. That's negative reinforcement. Here's another example. Let's say you have chores to do at home, emptying the dishwasher, for example, taking out the garbage, for example. And let's say that during breakfast, you're saying a lot of please and thank yous or just doing something your parents or guardian really like, and they say, you know what, you do not have to do your chore tonight. Since you said please and thank you, you do not have to empty the dishwasher tonight. You do not have to take out the garbage. You're still being rewarded, but your reward is the removal of something bad, something unpleasant. So another thing that helps to keep these straight, don't think of the word negative as bad. Think of the word negative as subtraction. Something's being removed to reinforce that behavior. Punishment. Just like it sounds, punishment is using unpleasant consequences, and the desire, typically, think of it from a parent, or if you have a dog or any kind of other pet, you're trying to make that behavior go away. You're trying to eliminate that behavior. You could do this after that behavior occurs. You could introduce something bad. Classic example is a spanking or a paddling or a spray to the face. The word positive punishment is a real thing. It's not positive because it's good for the person especially. It's positive because something's being added. Again, positive is addition. Put a little plus sign in your notes if you want to. When that behavior occurs, something is introduced. Could be negative punishment, which is where something is taken away. I bet your parents or guardians, when you do something they don't want you to do, take away your cell phone, take away your car privileges. That's negative punishment. Their intent is to make that behavior decrease or not occur again, and they're taking something away to do that. Another example, if a child talks back, says no or something, the toy is taken away. Our son at home, for example, when he is naughty at school or mouthy at home, he loses iPad time. That's what gets taken away. Finally, what I'd like you to do, for each one of these, I want you to push pause right now and identify what each one of these are. For example, Jimmy's father gives him $5 for washing the car. Is that positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, positive punishment, negative punishment? Push pause right now and write down your answers for each one of these. Let's go through the answers to these. Jimmy's father gives him $5 for washing the car. Washing the car is the behavior. He wants that, Jimmy's father that is, he wants washing the car to increase in the future, so that's reinforcement. He's giving him $5. Think of giving as adding. That's positive reinforcement. The second one, Maria was fighting with her sister. Her mother says she can't watch TV tonight. So the behavior in this case is fighting with her sister. Does her mom want her to fight with her sister? No. So she's going to punish that behavior. Can't watch TV. She's removing TV watching. So I would call that negative punishment. Negative punishment. The third one. Riley is 4 years old. She is spanked for running into the street. The behavior in this case, running into the street, the parents do not want that. That's punishment. Spanking is positive because it's being added. That's positive punishment. The next one, your teacher says you don't have to take the final exam if you have a B. I need to change this now. That would be negative reinforcement. B is the behavior, or having a B in the class is the behavior the teacher is trying to reinforce. Taking away the final exam is negative. Removal, negative. So that's negative reinforcement. The next one, Sarah's parents don't allow her to use the car for 2 weeks because she has a D in chemistry. Having a D in chemistry is the behavior they are trying to eliminate or decrease, so that's punishment. Not allowing her to use the car, removing that is negative punishment. The last one, you always put on your seatbelt so the annoying buzzer will stop. We talked about this example. You putting on your seatbelt is the behavior that's trying to be reinforced. The buzzer stops, that's negative reinforcement.